guys, time for another Nerd Rants video. Today I will be doing a dual review of two movies that are completely unrelated. But the only similarity they have is that they both came out in 2022. So today I'll be sharing my thoughts on Avatar: The Way of Water and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. To be clear, I will not be comparing these movies to each other because, in my opinion, they're too different for me to compare. I know a lot of people have been talking about how Puss in Boots is better than Avatar: The Way of Water, and they're entitled to your opinion. I see where you're coming from, but I think they're too different to be comparing in that way. There are people saying, I guess, I heard that maybe Puss in Boots is more entertaining than Avatar: The Way of Water, but they're two very different genres. Puss in Boots is an animated children's movie. It is made to be more fun and more entertaining in that sense, whereas The Way of Water is a very character-driven movie that is made almost like a documentary with very little story. So yeah, they're too different in my opinion to be comparing in that sense. They were both great movies. And I may have enjoyed Puss in Boots a little bit more because it is a children's movie made to be fun and entertaining and in that sense, versus The Way of Water, which is supposed to be this just super cool movie that brings you into this world and you learn about the characters and the whole ecosystem, I guess, that is happening with Pandora. And it's not made to be this super entertaining movie with an amazing storyline. The story is actually a very small part of it. So yeah, not comparing these two movies. They're both great. I enjoy both of them. Another reason I think some people prefer Puss in Boots is because it is only 2 hours versus Way of Water, which is 3 hours. So yeah. But anyway, we're going to be sharing my thoughts about both of them. We'll probably start with The Way of Water because I watched that one first, and then get into Puss in Boots. But The Way of Water. So, James Cameron, the director, spent a decade developing a new kind of motion capture technology so that they could film underwater. So the actors are actually swimming when they're doing it in the movie. It's insane. This is why it took him a decade to get the sequel out, is because he's just inventing a new kind of filming technology, motion capture, so that he can be as real as possible. The actors are doing it. It's insane, and it paid off. The effects in this movie are amazing. They're so great. And on top of that, we get to explore more of Pandora, which is just an incredible world. We see the forest people, the forest Na'vi in the first one, and that one has a good storyline. It's original, so it's fresh. And then this one, we are focusing on the Sully family, and then they end up in the water Na'vi tribe, or one of them, and we get to basically start the process of learning about this tribe or breed of Na'vi. And it's, oh my gosh, I've mentioned this several times in my videos, but I am a sucker for world building and character development and all of the developmental stuff, the things that make world a world and like a character developing through things. So this movie, a character-driven movie that is basically just a documentary about Pandora, is just, it's right in my vein of enjoyment. Like, I loved it. So many world building things. It's like all the creatures that we get, and we get these new characters, and it's like all of them, all of Sully's kids, and getting to see them individually. And Sigourney Weaver's character in the first movie, I don't remember her name, but her mysterious child, Kiri, that was interesting. And obviously leading up to bigger things with her, but just, I love their little family. They're all such cool characters, and they're all so individual. And Tuck's so cute. Tuck is so freaking cute. She's adorable. Anyway, so yeah, and then the villain in this movie, which is just the villain from the last movie, but his memories programmed into an avatar, that was convoluted. That was a little convoluted, and they kind of did it just so they could have a villain. The only reason he was really there, the only reason that really the story, that weak little storyline that they had going on was to give a reason for the Sullys to end up in the Water Navi's tribe. So I didn't care too much about his name's Quaritch or whatever. But I didn't care too much about him and the storyline that was happening there. Thankfully, it didn't take up too much of the movie because it was mainly focused on like the Sullys learning how to survive in the Water Navi's tribe, and like exploring the creatures and like their ancestral tree, which is basically just an underwater anemone thing, which is very cool. But just, I so loved exploring this world, and it was so great. And the characters were all very fun. And Spider is interesting. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about Spider. He was a very interesting character, but he was used on like the storyline side of it, and the part that I didn't care about as much, and so which didn't take up as much as of the movie, so we didn't get to learn as much about his character. But he was still a very interesting character, just a human that has grown up among the Na'vi, and so he essentially likes to think of himself as a Na'vi and wants to be as much like the Na'vi as he can. And yeah, he's a very interesting character, and hopefully we get more into his in depth in his character as we go through into the next Avatar movie, because I think there are things they can do with his character that don't have to rely on a meh plotline. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next, because it's like they're going to move into like another tribe of Na'vi. It's like they have to, because we learn pretty much all we can about the Water Na'vi in this one, and then I think the next one is like fire or something. I heard something about it being fire or something of the like. Anyway, so probably going into another tribe. So then they'll probably pull the storyline is why they move on. I don't know how integral the storyline will be to the plot, but I wouldn't mind another movie like this one where it's kind of just focusing on you know, learning about the tribe, but at the same time, the plot line needs to develop and become more integral to the story so that at the end of it, because so there's supposed to be four of them, so in the last movie they can have this big climax to resolve something. Probably Courage, since he's still alive. But yeah, so I think the next one will definitely have the plotline becoming more integral to the actual movie and what is happening. Well, I'm sure we'll still get a lot of exploring the tribe of what, or whatever, and learning about the people that are there, but it's definitely gonna have to get more into an overarching plot line because there's only like two movies left and there's got to be this big climax to resolve. Otherwise, it'll be a very underwhelming ending, I guess. Because if we're going to do a series, there needs to be this overarching plot line, this overarching villain or something or problem or something that needs to be resolved by the end of it. And so far, we haven't really had that introduced to like 3-hour movies in. The first movie basically acted as a standalone, where it's the humans there are the main overarching plot of everything, basically, and then they resolve that and the bad humans go away. And then they basically just reintroduce the same problem in the second one, but with all of these horrible people from the first movie integrated into avatars. And so they come back. And so that was a little bit convoluted and not the most creative way to have a villain. But yeah, now we're gonna have to definitely, it's like, is Courage like the overarching villain or is it someone else? It kind of seems like maybe it'll be someone else, just given how Courage, his, I guess, attitude kind of shifts throughout the movie as he interacts with Spider, his son, and kind of softens, I guess, a little bit. It seems like, so I feel like maybe he won't end up being the main overarching villain, but if he is not, then they need to introduce them, and very soon, because there's not a whole lot of movie left. If I keep this trend, there's only like 6 hours of movie left. And that's not a whole lot of time to introduce a villain, make them a threat, and like a big enough threat to be considered an overarching villain, and then resolve that in the end in the last movie. So I am interested to see what they're going to do with it, and I'm sure I'll enjoy all of the world building that's going on. I'm sure it'll be so fun. But yeah, I have no idea what they're going to do with it, like plot wise, because you're making a series. There needs to be some sort of plot happening, some sort of overarching plot. So it'll be interesting to see what that is, and where they go with this, because at this point, these movies keep like resolving, and it's not a whole lot of wiggle room to go into the next thing. So there's not a lot of stuff going on to give a lot of room for theorizing. Like, there's not a whole lot there for us to theorize about. So yeah, we're all kind of in the dark at this point, except James Cameron knows exactly where he's going with this, or at least he should. Anyway, yes, I really enjoyed this movie and all the world building and the exploration of the Water Navi and their tribe and all of these characters, and going in depth with their relationships and who they are, and it was very enjoyable. The plot, what little story was happening was a little convoluted, but it's not the most convoluted story I have seen in a movie that I still enjoy. So obviously it was not pushing the limits or anything. But yes, those are my thoughts on The Way of Water. It was a solid movie. Worth like a decade of hype. I wasn't really into the decade of hype, so I don't even know how hyped up it got. But yes, it was a very good movie. Now, on to Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. I watched this like a week ago. I know I'm behind the 8 ball on it, but I didn't, at first I wasn't interested in it because I only seen like one trailer and it hadn't interested me. And then my brother went to see it and said it was really good. And so then I waited until my boyfriend got back in town and then we watched it together. And it was so good. Like, this is the kind of children's movie that I want to be made. Like, just this needs to be the standard for children's movies. Like, it was so good. It was child appropriate, and it was made for kids, but it was still so enjoyable for like everyone in the audience, including adults, because it's freaking dark. Like, if you're an adult, like, you know what's happening, it's freaking dark. Big Jack Horner, are you kidding me? He is murdering his henchmen throughout this entire movie and doesn't give a crap about anyone. He is like, if you've ever taken psychology, you know that antisocial doesn't mean you don't like to be around people. In psychology, it means that you actively, like, work against people. You don't like people to the point where you act on that. So you work against society. That's what antisocial means in psychology. That's Big Jack Horner. He is just absolutely, he is a psycho. He's a psycho. And it's amazing. Like, he's a great villain. It's so good. Like, so the whole point, they are trying to get the last wishing star, the wishing star that fell to Earth, so that they can use that. Everyone involved wants something from it. They want that last wish. Puss wants to get more lives back so he can keep being a legend. Kitty wants someone she can trust. Goldie wants a real family. But freaking Jack Horner just wants to control all of the magic in the world. He is so messed up. It's so messed up, and it's so great. Like, he is using a crossbow to shoot unicorn horns at people. And when they hit people, the person explodes. They literally explode. It is into confetti and, like, balloons and stuff, because it's a kid's movie. But they still explode. Unicorn's horns blow people up. And he is just shooting them everywhere and taking out his people. Because he doesn't give a crap about anyone in humanity. He uses his people as a bridge across a canyon. Walks across them, taking into account this guy is like 5 times bigger than the average person. And then he tries to carry his house-sized wagon across them and just kills all but one of his people. They just fall to their death in a canyon. I have no words for how crazy and that he is, but it's so great. He is such a great villain. Because he just has no morals. And the only person he cares about is himself. Literally, there is no one in his life that he cares about. A lot of villains where it's like, oh, they care only about themselves. But then there's this one person, and then they care more about them than anything. Yeah, no, Jack Horner has no one. He is literally looking out only for himself and wants to rule the world by having all the magic. It's so great. So good. And then we have death. The wolf is death, and he's amazing. He is amazing. Oh my gosh. Oh man. The whistle. The whistle every time he enters a scene is so flippin' creepy. It's so creepy. And I love it. Oh, I love it. It's so great. It's so great. Oh man, I love Death. I probably enjoyed Death's character more than Jack Horner, just because he was done so freaking well. He was terrifying. He's just a giant white wolf with red eyes in a cloak, walking around with these like curved scythes, one in each hand. He is dual wielding just these big curved blades. It's amazing. Not to mention the animation in the first scene he's introduced when he cuts Puss, and all of a sudden all of Puss's hairs stand up. You know, like a cat, like a cat does, where they arch their back and all the hair bristles. Oh, that was a beautiful scene. That scene was beautiful. Because it's just this tiniest cut. But Puss bleeds. And all of a sudden he realizes, oh crap, I am outmatched. I'm gonna die. And just all of his fur. Oh my gosh. That is by far one of the best introductions for a character I have seen. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. The whistling and he just appears. It's like the candles blow out, which candles blowing out before it was earlier used earlier in the movie to symbolize that Puss died. And then he just appears with that terrifying whistle. And he makes Puss bleed and just freaks the heck out of him and makes him run away. Puss just terrified this whole movie to the point of having a panic attack. Because he's terrified he's gonna die. And he is finally feeling the weight of death. Oh, it's so great. It's so great. Just running through the dark forest, seeing death everywhere. His face hearing the whistle just to the where he can't even move anymore. He is petrified and his heart is pounding so fast. Oh my gosh. It was beautifully done. That was so great. Puss just freaking out. This whole movie was so great. Oh, man. And Goldie. Goldie was awesome. Also, she's voiced by Florence Pugh, who is Yelena in Black Widow. You know, arguably the only good part of that movie, Yelena Belova. And now she's playing Goldie, who is also a great character. It's such a cool take on the Three Bears story. It's like, no, we don't chase her out. She's straight up an orphan, and we adopt her. A couple of bears take in this human girl, and it's such a cute story. And the bears themselves are so great because we have the constant references to the too hard, too soft, just right throughout it, which is very entertaining. Just this, because, Daddy Bear, this huge, intimidating thing, interrogating an old lady and just politest thing on the planet. And then Mama Bear threatening her to use her innards as a scarf or something of the sort. And just their constant, their family dynamic was so great. It was so great. I loved their little group. It was very good. And just, yeah, and Goldie going through the development of, I want a real family, I want a real family. I'm not a bear, so obviously they're not my family. And going through this story, and even the map to the wishing star trying to tell her, you don't need your wish, you have it. And her eventually getting to the point where she realizes, yeah, no, family is not based on species or blood. It is, these bears raised me. That is my family. I love them. The characters were so well done in this. So, like, geez, the depth these characters had is better than the depth in some, like, adult shows that I have watched or movies that I have watched. Like, some of the characters in these movies that are made for adults and teenagers, that can be dark, that can go deep into this gruesome stuff, are just flat. And even the characters that are, like, meant to be, oh, I have so much depth and it's like tragic backstory, blah, 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 they're still just these two-dimensional characters, and we don't get anywhere past the surface of, they are like the dark broody one, they are the sweet one. It's like, and we don't get anything more than what first impressions are. It's like, we don't actually get a real reason for why this dark character, this broody character, is shut off from the world. Even though it's like, you're gonna shut yourself off from the world, there's some kind of reason. And then we have this children's movie, this animated children's movie that has so much depth to these characters. I will say Jack Horner's origin story, I guess, to become big Jack Horner and want all the magic in the world, not the best reason. Of course, it fits his character that he doesn't need a huge reason to just snap and go all psycho. But, and even that, it fits his character enough so that it doesn't necessarily have to be this huge big thing for him to become a psycho and want all the magic in the world. And so that then the backstory, which isn't necessarily, this big thing, still works and adds to his character in a way that some of the backstories we get in adult shows, where it's just like, oh, my parents died and I blame it on this and blah, blah, blah. It does more for him with this dinky little backstory of, I was beat by magic puppets and I want to control all the magic in the world. It does that better than some of the shows where this character is like, oh, I'm dark and broody because I lost everyone in my life and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it does this children's movie does backstories and character development better than some shows I've watched, and it's amazing. It's sad because some of those shows I've watched that are bad at characters, but it's so good. Oh, this movie's so great. Kitty's great because she's Kitty. It's Kitty's soft paws. She was one of the more enjoyable parts of the first movie, which was not great. But anyway, yeah. The only character that I didn't enjoy as much was Perito, the dog. He's basically supposed to be more of the comedic relief character. You know how Olaf is for Frozen. He is way better than Olaf. Olaf has no reason to exist and is awful. And they had to come up with a reason for him. They had to come up with Olaf, they had to find ways to work him into the story. Like, they created this character. It's like, oh, yay, there's this fun comedic relief character. Crap, now we have to find a way to make him important. Whereas Perito, he's made with a purpose. Like, there is a purpose behind him, and he does have a character, whereas Olaf's just like, I'm a snowman built for magic. I like hugs, and I'm supposed to be this big happy guy. No, that's not how you do a character. Perito has a backstory, and he's like horrible things have happened to him, but he's just this naive little puppy who's just like, oh yeah, I don't completely understand what was happening there. Because I mean, he was a puppy. And then he comes out of it and he's just like, well, he's just the constantly being happy about everything is the point where he is very similar to Olaf, and he's just like, yeah, it's a little bit annoying, but at the same time, it is his character is being this naive little puppy who likes to think the best of people, and that is a legitimate character trait to have, where you just think the best of everyone all the time, and and you're naive enough that you don't necessarily believe that even when someone's doing something bad, that it is that they're like doing it intentionally. And so we have him as this character, and yes, he's the comedic relief. He does comedy better than Olaf, which is setting a very low bar. Olaf's humor is not great, but anyway. So yeah, we just have this naive little puppy and who's looking for friends, and so basically gets adopted by Puss against Puss's wishes, and stows away on this quest and ends up serving a very good purpose, and being there even when Puss doesn't want anyone around. Like, he's having a panic attack. He runs away because he doesn't want anyone to see him scared. And then we have Perito is just like, no, you're not going to be by yourself. And chases after him and is just like, yep, I'm just going to be here. Because whether you think like it or not, you need someone there. So yeah. I actually did kind of like Perito. He was basically an Olaf character done well. Of all the characters in the movie, not my favorite, but he was still a pretty good character. Oh man. Should talk about the ending? Probably. I think I've talked about pretty much everything else. Oh, the dark forest. The fact that the map, whoever's touching the map, looking at the map and like holding on to it, determines the path that, like, the dangers and the path that you have to face to get to the wishing star was so cool. Like, just here, the dark forest. It's not all that dark. And then touch the map. Like, the landscape changes, and the scenes we get where the map changes hands in the middle of the path, and all of a sudden, like, everything's breaking apart and turning into something else. So good. So good. I loved it. The Dark Forest was such a cool landscape for them to be in, and just the path constantly changing, and then they get to the center and the star is actually massive. Massive. Oh, it's the animation for the star too, with all like the multifaceted, like, it looks like a diamond. It's so cool. And all of the different colors shining off of it, and the final battle happening on this basically diamond battlefield. Oh, it's so good. And then the last stand with death, where Puss gets to the point, he's like, oh, I don't need all of these lives. I can have a good life, whether it's my last or I have 8 others after it. I can still be Puss in Boots and getting to this acceptance of, I'm on my last life. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, next time I die, I won't come back. But I still have one more life, and I gotta live it. And oh man. Development. Character development. And oh man, the fact that he doesn't actually like defeat death. I mean, he does. He like finally gets the confidence and gets over his fear and is able to disarm him. And then, like, the final battle, he but he doesn't necessarily defeat death. Like, the battle doesn't end with one of them necessarily winning. It ends with death looking at him and realizing, you're not the person I came here to kill anymore. You have grown and you have learned to value this life that you have. I'm going to let you live it. That's how that battle ends. No one necessarily wins in that battle. You could say it's Puss because he's still alive, but yeah, no one necessarily wins that battle, and I love it. Oh man. Then Goldie accepting the bears as her true family, so great. And then Kitty, Perito, and Puss at the very end are traveling, steal a boat, and are traveling to far, far away. The implication is, and I'm pretty sure it's confirmed, that there's another Shrek movie. And so we're getting Shrek back. And like these universes that have been like connected but not, crossing over, that for this whole time, suddenly they're going to be meshed. Like, characters from the Puss in Boots movies are coming into the Shrek universe, and I'm very interested to see what they do for the next Shrek movie. And considering how this Puss in Boots movie went, I kind of have high hopes for it. Like, I think it's going to be good if they keep following the pattern that they have with this Puss in Boots movie. If the quality keeps up, it's going to be great. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens, because like Shrek's my childhood. Like, all 4 of those movies, I grew up watching them, and they're great. Shrek is great. The Shrek universe, this is the standard for children's movies. Like, child appropriate, but enjoyable for everyone in the theater. Like, there are children's movies made nowadays, like, yeah, they're child appropriate, but nobody likes them except the kids. That is my standard for things. Like, it is a good, solid movie if I can enjoy it no matter what age I am at. Yes. Anyway. Yeah. Those are my thoughts on The Way of Water and Puss in Boots. Yeah, they were both very good movies. I enjoyed them both very much. Story-wise, and like, story-wise, Puss in Boots was better, because that was the point. It was story-driven. And then, like, world-building, character development, all of that stuff, well, they're kind of equal on character development, because they did characters so well in Puss in Boots. Anyway, but just, like, the world-building stuff-wise, I mean, Avatar takes it, because are you kidding me? That was basically a documentary of a movie. But yes, they were both so good. So good. I enjoyed them both very much. But yeah, both great. Share your thoughts in the comments. What'd you think of the movies? Did you like one more than the other What points in either movie did you just not like? Because there's always things. But yeah, share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you all next time.